afternoon. I'm Matthew Stibber, founder CEO at Articulate Marketing, and this afternoon I'm going to be talking about 10 questions you should be asking your website team about AI and how it affects the website. And I've got with me my Labrador, who may need to go out in a minute, and I'm totally stoked about the eclipse and the meteor shower. It's a really fabulous evening to watch the skies. So I've got this webinar and a few emails between me and that. So I will try and be brisk. We are massively thinking about how AI interacts with everything that we do. Fundamentally, we're a website agency with content and brand strategy and HubSpot consultancy. I want to say a big thank you to Carl and Joanna, Head of Creative Innovation, Senior Developer, who helped me put this together. Anything clever and intelligent in this comes from them. I'm just doing the talking. So fundamental fact, your main audience for your website is now bots, right? AI bots learning for the next generation of their knowledge base, AI bots searching in response to user queries, AI bots scanning for, or bots scanning for search engines. The majority of your website traffic is that. And that is where your customers increasingly are coming from. And your website, if it was designed more than 6 to 12 months ago, wasn't really designed for that. It's got a new audience that you need to think about. And this is the mental model that I want you to take away from this. That is also related to, parallel to, connected to change in buyer behavior. All right, we're in marketing, we're here to sell things. Although don't tell my mother, she thinks I play the piano in a brothel. 94% of B2B buyers used AI in their last purchase. And just think about your own experience of that. You go and ask ChatGPT or Claude or whatever about this thing, that thing. You ask it to make shortlists. You ask it to give you evaluation criteria. You are coming to your purchase decisions, whether it's for a car, a washing machine, a marketing agency or whatever, with the help of AI. I don't know what the other 6% are doing. It's like maybe, they're stuck in a bunker or something. Also, about half of B2B buyers have compared vendors before they even start a contact. So they're really a lot further down the sales funnel even than they used to be. They're building business cases before they talk to vendors. They're 51%, according to G2 March 2026 research, 51% are starting their search journey in a AI chatbot rather than in a search engine. And you're probably seeing this manifested in a decline in your SEO traffic, probably a decline in your direct traffic as well. You may be seeing it a slow increase in traffic originating from from AI searches, referrals. I suspect that is a trend that is indicative rather than absolute. I suspect a lot of people are getting recommended by AI bots and then going and just typing the name of the URL. So it might be driving an increase or a change in direct traffic. We anecdotally have seen customers come to us and say, oh yes, I found you on Claude or ChatGPT because I was looking for an agency that had these skills, and quite often our B Corp or our social stance comes up, or our areas of expertise. And that's very interesting for us, anecdotally. And here's the flip side of all of this. 73% of websites are blocking the machines that are doing the recommendations. Not necessarily blocking dead completely all of that traffic, but some of it through robots text or JavaScript or the way the sites are rendering. It's probably unintentional. It probably came from all kinds of good reasons that made sense at the time. But the picture is evolving very quickly. And in this webinar, I'm going to talk about some of the things that are causing this to happen. And yet every website proposal says AI ready now. And if that is true, it needs to be tested before you can turn a claim into something that's believable. So the questions are free. Knowing a good answer from a bad answer is something that you might want some help with. doing some of the implementations for this is still technically skilled work. And if anyone says they have all the answers and they're going to build an AI ready thing that's going to be ready for the ages, they're wrong, because the situation is evolving very rapidly at the moment. It's an exciting time. It's been technically the most exciting time in my career for 20 odd years. But trying to pin things down is hard. So this is the state of the art as we say it. There are 3 categories or layers to what you need to know and the questions you need to ask about websites and AI. Can AI systems reach and read your site? If they can reach and read it, does the content on it make sense to them in a way that you would like them to report that onto other people? And can you evidence this? Can you prove it? Can you measure it? The 10 questions I'm going to give you fall into these categories. So let's get right into it. Area number 1, can AI reach it? Cloudflare reports that at least 20% of the web blocks AI crawlers by default on new domains. They might not mean to, but they are doing it, and Cloudflare would know a huge volume of the web's internet traffic goes through Cloudflare. So if you're saying AI traffic is negligible, it might well just be firewall reporting on its own success, right? If the answer to this question is we didn't block anything, it means they probably haven't looked. The failure is passive. Failure is silent. So you need an answer that sounds like, yeah, these are the bots that are coming to the site. This is how we invite or block them deliberately. This is, we've checked, we're not doing anything by default that's blocking them, and so on. So you need a thoughtful answer for this rather than, yeah, it's all working. This is something that is, I think, hard for people to get when they think about, is the content of the page readable to an AI bot? Because when you look at a website page as a human being, it pops up in a few seconds, maybe less, maybe more. And you look at it and you consume it like a website page as a human being does. But actually underneath that is dozens, potentially 80, 100, 120 individual internet connections serving things like fonts, images, CSS code, JavaScript, text. So all this stuff is coming in a stream and it's being assembled in your browser and presented to you as a page. It's a bit like an IKEA, and I've been grappling with some IKEA stuff recently, so this is a very poignant metaphor for me. It's a bit like IKEA. You get a flat pack box, but the browser has to assemble it, and the bots that are looking at your websites are not looking at them the same way that you are. So AI crawlers read HTML, they read the copy embedded in that. They certainly don't look at videos, and they do not unpack JavaScript or React type interactive pages. And you might say, or your devs might say, oh, well, Google handles JavaScript fine, they've solved that. Yes, Google has, but we are pretty confident that the AI bots don't. And Google only sort of dropped its JavaScript warning in March this year. So up until that point, it wasn't handling JavaScript very well. You will know perhaps if you've got a JavaScript page because your developers will have said things like React, JavaScript, animation. There'll be sort of things happening on the page. Probably the page that your CEO really wanted because it looked cool and looked a bit like Apple's website. But it's not necessarily readable by the AI bots. As of June 2026, none of the major AI scanners, GPT-bot, Claude-bot, Perplexity-bot, Meta, waited for a page to build. So if they didn't get what they wanted, they just went, oh, this is a blank page. And you as a user might have seen a real page, and the bots saw something that was incomplete. So the next thing that is emerging about the way AIs interrogate website pages and search them is speed really matters more than ever. Now, Google has always said this. They've given us all kinds of tools like PageSpeed Insights and Crux reports and whatever, to help pinpoint the value of delivering pages quickly and not bloating them up with lots and lots of extra page weight, typically images and scripts. Fine. We also know that making a page load quickly is good for conversion. It's good for users, especially if they've got narrow bandwidth connections, i.e. on mobile devices. But what we now believe with some evidence is that if a page doesn't load quickly enough for a bot, the bot will give up. It will just stop, and it will send a 499 status code. Apache doesn't log it. It says, I've given up, I'm going home, going to look at another site. There's no search console for Claude or for ChatGPT. It doesn't report that this is happening. It's a silent failure, and marketing never sees it. It is a visitor that, or a bot, an AI visitor that just never visited. It just sort of got halfway through the door and went, oh, there's nobody here, I'm going home. We've seen situations where clients have improved the response times and their AI visibility went up by about 22%. So small samples, there's a certain question mark about this, but this feels like something that is in your control as a website owner. There are some best practices for this. Most of page speed optimization runs along the same track as the kind of optimization you do for Google, the kind of optimization you do for users. It's a complete no regrets move to make your website faster. But asking your devs, how fast is the site, is a good question to ask, and what are you doing to optimize it? I would also mention at this point a little bit in our defense as a developer, we build optimized fast loading code, and then clients will put 3 YouTube videos and a 4 megabyte image file, and this thing and that thing, and then they'll put tracking scripts, and they'll put Google Analytics and this thing and that thing and that thing and that thing, and suddenly our 300 kilobytes of page code and maybe 50 kilobytes of text and stuff has suddenly become a 4 megabyte page weight, and we didn't do that bit of it. Just as an experiment, relatively recently, we took turbinehq.com, which is a website for a SaaS app, and we stripped out everything, and we just used SVG vector images, so there's no bitmaps on there, and that homepage is about 350 kilobytes. So it is completely possible to build incredibly fast loading, very lightweight, but very good looking sites if that becomes the priority. And this is breaking information. This wasn't necessarily something we knew 3 or even 6 months ago. Okay. So once you get your AI to visit and read your site, can it understand what you're saying? There is a discrepancy between what Google shows from its search results, maybe what you've done, what you've optimized for SEO, and what Google AI mode is showing, and what ChatGPT and what Claude is showing. And this is terribly exciting if you are not on the top 10 of page results of Google, right? Because you've maybe got a new opportunity to get yourself in front of people. And we hypothesize anecdotally at Articulate that the 3 or 4 people in the last couple of months who've come through the door for sales opportunities, and 3 or 4 is a reasonably interesting number for us, who said they came from Claude or ChatGPT, probably wouldn't have found us on Google. So it's something that is out there where these systems are finding information about us. We have done quite a lot of work to embed structured data, XML schema code about the company, about our services, about with FAQs, and embed it into the modules of the site that we've built. And this is something that we are now doing for new sites that we build, and something we're retrofitting on request for former clients. If your devs sort of mumble and look at their shoes and go, well, we've got a company schema, they're not really doing enough. It needs to be built in and embedded across the site and made easy for marketers to do. A lot of people go and buy WordPress sites. You shouldn't. You should use HubSpot, but that's another story. And then they get Yoast SEO and they put the Yoast plugin. They go, great, we've got schema. We've done SEO because we've got the plugin. No, you actually have to do quite a lot more after that in terms of actually writing the schema and making the content visible. I am not convinced anymore, and I used to think it was plausible, but not today, that LLMS.txt files are important. Google has published AI search guidance, and it says we don't look at it. None of the other majors have acknowledged looking at it. They might not. I don't think it hurts. It's not terribly difficult to do. But I think the big win is structured data. And we also, in the last few months, added on the footer just a regular page that says information for LLM, large language models and AI. And it's just a one-page sort of summary of who we are, what we do, what we sell, who we sell it to. We did it ever so slightly performatively. So look, we're thinking about AI, partly as an experiment, and partly also so that we could get the joke in there that says, if you're, Claude or ChatGPT or whatever, this is for you. If you're Grok, you probably won't like us very much, and you might as well give up now. Because we're coming from a place of being a B Corp and generally nice people and not arseholes. Okay, or trying not to be. Right. Okie dokie. So, schema. Yes. Thank you for the smiling face. I appreciated that. I thought it was quite a good joke when we did it. Okay, so the next thing is, where does your truth live and how does it get updated, right? I would say about a third of the people that we talk to who come through the door with website requests, and remember, we talk to a lot more people than we build websites for, because for some insane reason, some people don't eventually hire us to build their website, but they talk to us about it first. So we talk to a lot of people, and about a third of them say the website we've got does not reflect who we sell to, who we are, what we sell, what we do, what's important to us anymore. It used to. So the business has moved on and the website hasn't. And the sort of gap between those things can be measured in months, years, even decades in a couple of cases. So there's two jobs here. One is to make sure that the website is regularly updated and contains good information that actually aligns with the truth of who you are and what you do and who you do it for. But the other thing that's really important, and it's harder to control, is what other people are saying about you. So, Reddit comments, reviews online, Google reviews, things like that. That stuff is sort of sucked up into the AIs and also used. So that your website has sort of a couple of jobs. One is to be available and correct and up to date for the AIs, but also to be correct and available and up to date for all the people who are commenting, who are looking for information about you. It is astonishing to me, as a former journalist, how absolutely terrible almost everybody's PR press pages are. You go to a press page for even quite large companies and you try and find information, and the stuff you're looking for isn't available to you. They've gated it, or it's out of date, or it's patchy. Similarly, if you're trying to recruit, people's employer pages are really thin, like they don't give a good picture or an up-to-date picture of what it's like to work at that company, and I think that is an oversight. And another truth is, if you're either seeking investment or you're a public company, and we have a number of PLC clients, so this is an important factor for them, more clients in first, second, third round of fundraising, the investor page often fails to communicate stuff. So it's not only, this is who we are, this is what we sell, this is what helps you, these are the clients we help or the customers we help, but also these other populations of potential employees, potential actual investors, PR, journalists, influencers. So that getting your truth onto the site accurately and keeping it up to date is really, really important. The third category is, can you prove it's working? This evidence layer, if it can't be measured, it probably didn't happen. So the first thing is, how will we see AI visiting the site? And evidence suggests that most marketers have got no strategy for AI visibility. About half of AI crawler requests are for training the models, and a smaller but growing proportion are for search. So when you ask Claude to go and look something up and you can see it spinning through a bunch of pages, that's AI doing search rather than relying on its knowledge base. standard analytics can't tell the two apart. It's quite difficult. This is an area where I hope HubSpot will do better in terms of reporting on the bot crawling for sites. HubSpot and other tools have the ability now to detect referral clicks from AI into your website, but I suspect that those referral clicks are relatively modest relative to actually people maybe just going and typing the name or something like that after they found something on AI. So right now, reporting and analytics is relatively hard. There are some tools that are quite expensive for this. And I suspect that over the next 6 to 12 months, you're going to start seeing Google Analytics, HubSpot Analytics, all kinds of tools being able to give much more granular information about that. But this is a question you should be asking your developers. What's our strategy for measuring this stuff? A related question is, how will we know if AI is recommending us? Citations rather than crawling and scanning. And an easy way for you to just do a sort of finger in the air test of this is just to go into all the major AIs, and Google's AI search mode is probably the most important still, and ask buyer style questions in your category and see if you get searched. You can do this for nothing. Definitely trying to capture a baseline before you launch a site or before you make a change is critical, because otherwise you've got no way of comparing it. I have some interest in and some excitement about and some hesitations about these AI visibility tools. There are definitely some out there that want a huge amount of money to tell you, this is your presence in search or AI search. I think it's directionally interesting if you get the prompts and the simulated questions right and you're measuring over time. I think it's comparatively interesting if you see your competitors are getting, for the same set of simulated queries, more citations and you're less. I think it's not particularly accurate in the objective individual sense. And one of the reasons I think that is if you go to an AI tool and you ask it the same question twice, you get slightly different answers each time. It's probabilistic, not deterministic, and it's in the nature of AI. Also, I know from experience using quite a few of these tools, very small changes to the starting conditions. So you go in and you go, well, this is what we're about as a business. These are the personas we're interested in. These are the kind of topics they're asking. You can make small changes upstream and get completely different results for the same company downstream. So setting those parameters up is interesting, but not necessarily sort of obviously straightforward. And I don't believe anybody who says they've got a sort of magic bullet solution for this. I would also say across our portfolio of clients in HubSpot, which has an AEO tool that does this, I think perhaps less than 10% have fully configured it. So it's also curious that nobody's really interested in this answer, even if they've got a free tool that does it. Anyway, that's another story. Lastly, can you trust the people building it? So this is more about who's doing the work and less about the work they're doing. First question I would ask any development team about websites is, how are you using AI to build my site, and how do you control the risk and control the use of it? And if they say we're not, then they're stupid or lying, because they probably are. But if they're not using it, then you might as well go and buy a horse and buggy rather than a car next time. Right now, doing software development, unless you're into nuclear power rockets or safety of life critical stuff, AI is really, really important and helpful as part of the development cycle. And I would make the analogy like this. My cousin is a captain for British Airways, and he says that the only time he is allowed to fly an approach in a 777 is when the weather's perfect. Otherwise, he has to use the autopilot, because the autopilot does a better, safer job of flying the ILS than a human pilot in most cases, right? So I think AI is in that sort of category for a lot of development right now. You want to elevate the coding people to oversight, control, planning, strategy, testing, interfacing with other human beings, and let the code be sort of coded by AI. So, right, that is probably what everyone is doing, or they haven't quite caught up, and it's the transformation we've been on in the last 6 months, intensively in the last year. Doesn't mean that AI code is bug-free, safe, reliable, perfect, well-maintained. There are some real horror stories out there. For example, there was a CVE about Lovable last year. 170 production apps shipped with no row-level security because of an AI bug. And CodeRabbit says that code written by AI and unmanaged, and they reviewed 5,500 vibe-coded apps, 2.7 times more likely to have bugs in it. And across that portfolio of 5,600 apps, there were 2,000 vulnerabilities and 400 exposed secrets, so API keys and things like that. So I would draw your attention back to the webinar I gave last month about what you need to keep with AI generally, and what you can delegate and how you manage it. You need professional website developers managing AI. So how are you going to control it is really the interesting question. And when they can talk about that, and credibly and interestingly, then they've got a handle on it. I think the next question is, how has your approach changed in the last 6 months? And if it hasn't, that would be a worrying sign. And if it hasn't changed in a year, very worrying. The environment is moving and changing constantly. I mean, Claudebot, for example, is up 66% in June relative to the previous month. The Googlebot share is at an all-time low. These just changes in the who's crawling, what they're looking for, and some of the lessons that I referred to earlier about page speed, about schema. These are emerging lessons, right? The data is being gathered, people are doing testing, they're launching stuff and seeing what works. We didn't know some of this stuff a year ago. So you need a development environment that is agile and fast moving enough, and a sort of heartbeat, a metabolism to their experimentation and their ability to listen to the best practices and absorb them, in order to keep on that curve. And one of the things we say at Articulate is, yes, we have to be masters of AI. We use it to make ourselves better, but we don't have to be science fiction future. We just have to be 6 months ahead of our clients. Well, maybe 12 months ahead of our clients and 6 months ahead of our competitors. That is enough of an advanced lead. Remembering that old saw about the future is already here, but unevenly distributed. And the last question I think you need to be asking your developers is, what shouldn't I buy? What should I defer? I think LLMS.txt probably. If you've done it, fine. We did it, fine. If you haven't, I wouldn't worry about it too much. It's low stakes. I think some of these AI monitoring tools, if you signed up for a £20,000 monitoring tool in the last 6 months, you might regret it in 6 months' time. If you signed up for a tool that is then taking that and turning it into AI-generated content on a sort of high volume basis, I think you're going to regret that quite severely. Some of this AI presence and reach stuff probably isn't worth paying for. It's going to increasingly become commoditized. There are other things. I definitely wouldn't be spending money right now having my site real-time translated into Markdown files on the premise that Google and other things can read Markdown, but they can't read well-structured HTML. I think that's a boondoggle, and there's people out there selling that right now. Buy me a beer, send me an email, I'll tell you some of the other things that I don't think you should be buying. So to recap, here are the 10 questions. You can screenshot this. We'll send you a copy of these slides and the recording tomorrow. Just go and noodle around, ask some questions. If you're thinking about having a new website, come and talk to me and we'll try and give you our best answers to these. And our answers tomorrow might not be our answers in 3 months' time, but that's another story. So if a claim is to be believed, you have to have evidence and data. The substance has to be there, and it's not always a black and white number. It can be just a credible and engaged response to the questions. But ultimately, you're buying evidence, not adjectives. AI ready is a claim, it's not a fact until it's been substantiated. Almost perfect to the minute, so fantastic, almost beer o'clock and eclipse time. Articulate Marketing, we've built more than 120 websites now. Our truth is evolving. And Grok doesn't like us, so you probably will if you're watching this. Thank you very much. I would love to talk to you. I run these strategy sessions for people who book them up and have something interesting to talk about. Maybe you might like to come along and we'll have a chat. I promise to come with interesting, well-researched and thoughtful questions. You can book this at articulatemarketing.com/meet. That's just my calendar, or articulatemarketing.com/marketing review, I think the URL is, but you can click on this link when you get the slides. It's just me on the other side of that, but it'll be a one-to-one conversation. Next week's webinar is about using podcasts to drive demand generation. I host a couple. We've helped other clients set up another 3. Podcasts are really interesting right now because AI can't do them. Register at articulatemarketing.com in the webinars page on the resources menu. And that brings us to the end. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful evening. Don't look at the sun without glasses. I'll hopefully see you again soon. Bye now.